Okay, so I am once again staying in a hotel in Las Vegas. And I feel like if you watch my YouTube channel, you are getting the impression that I'm like a big Las Vegas person. And I guess de facto I kind of am. I don't really like Las Vegas that much, but there's between DEF CON and work events, because there's so many conferences here now, I'm probably averaging like 3 Las Vegas trips a year lately. And then sometimes I come out and like camp around Lake Mead, and that's like kind of a fourth. So I guess maybe I am a bit of a Las Vegas person, but I live in the Southwest. It's not very far away, right? Anyway, so this time I'm staying in the Bellagio. I've never stayed in the Bellagio before. I tend to be a Caesars person, and I think I've kind of made like a tradition now of the Las Vegas hotel room. Let's poke around with the TV. Here's the bad news. This is like a really boring hotel room. I was optimistic because the Bellagio, it's kind of one of the higher end properties. It's not one of the newer ones at this point, but it's newer than like Caesars. So I was kind of hoping it would be interesting, but maybe because it's new and this room was remodeled just recently, I think it's got remodeled in the name of the room class. It's all pretty tidy in this room. Like there just isn't the electronics. It's totally an IPTV system. The electronics for it are behind this entertainment center furniture, which is like super heavy. I think you would need two people. You probably need a dolly to move it. I like don't have a chance of moving this thing. So, what am I going to show you? Well, this seems like an opportunity to talk about hotel phones. So here we got our pretty typical hotel nightstand. This white noise machine is mine because I am a special princess who needs my bedroom to be noisy. But other than that, it's basically what you would expect. There are electric drapes in this room. I gather that electric drapes are really common in hotels in like Europe, but my experience is that they're actually not common at all in the United States, even in relatively expensive properties. I think this is probably only the second hotel room that I've been in that's had electric drapes, and it's not even one of the more expensive rooms that I've been in. So that's sort of interesting, and probably just reflects the fact that this is a pretty new building. This is the Spa Tower, so I couldn't tell you when it was built, but it's even newer than the rest of the Bellagio, which is like early 90s. I think this might be early 2000s. So that's actually, we'll take a look at the motors for that in a minute, just because I rarely see electric drapes, so it's sort of interesting. But the phone, let's talk about phones. So the thing about hotel phones, they're kind of a weird little specialty industry. And most hotels, there was a time when when a hotel would have like a Western Electric, is it Model 500? I'm thinking of the like classic pyramid phone. But since then, this industry of hospitality phones has spawned. And I looked at this phone and I said, I think that's an AEI. And sure enough, it is an AEI. There's only like a couple of companies that make most of the phones that are used in hotel rooms. And I think in the United States, AEI seems to be the most common. I I honestly can't remember the name of the other company right now. Maybe I'll like, edit it over here. But these hospitality phone companies, they usually offer a cordless as well. So often more expensive hotels will have a cordless phone. This one doesn't for whatever reason, but I mean, who even uses the phone in the hotel room? So I can see why, even in a brand new building, you wouldn't spend the extra money on a cordless phone. It's just that, guests aren't going to care. Basically, the purpose that the hotel phone serves these days is not making outside phone calls. It's just calling the front desk, having an emergency button to hit your insurance requirement, trying to get some of that sweet, sweet room service revenue. And that's basically all the hotel phone is really doing. But the reason that hospitality phones are kind of special is sort of interesting. It's because for whatever reason, and I really don't know why, but I think it's probably just the economics of how hotels get built and remodeled. It's very rare for hotels to have a digital phone system like you would typically see in a business. And I've like one time stayed in a hotel that had one, and it was weird. Like, it stood out that there was a business phone in the hotel room. I actually saw a photo recently of someone in a hotel that had like a Cisco 7200 series. And that was so weird and out of place, right? I was laughing at that. But that's interesting because when you see a phone that has all these like soft buttons on them, there's a million different names for the buttons on phones. I mentioned this. Depending on exactly what kind of button they are, sometimes they're a BLF or a line button or an appearance button. I'm just going to call these soft keys because I think that's easiest. Most of the time when you see a phone that has soft keys like this, they are actually backed by the PBX. Like, the functionality of these buttons is defined by the PBX, and it's part of the digital communications protocol used for the phone. Even if it's an analog voice channel, most business phone systems you're going to see today have a digital control channel between the phone and the PBX. But hotels are rarely set up that way. They tend to have like basically some sort of business PBX system, like a Nortel Meridian sort of thing, but they do not have, with few exceptions, the digital extensions. They're just using normal analog phone lines. I think it's probably mostly just a cost thing to keep the cost of the in-room instrument down. But that means that these buttons have to be implemented locally as speed dials. So on older AEI phones, it was often the case that you would take off this overlay, and underneath it would be a little toggle switch or a little button that you had to push with a pointy thing that put the phone in programming mode. And then you could actually map what these face buttons did, what extensions they dialed. This is a pretty new one. I don't see anything like that. I'm just feeling this to see if I can feel like a depression under it. Maybe. No, I think I'm just feeling a little spot where you insert the room number. My guess would be there's some combination of buttons that you hold. Maybe I'll look up the manual for this phone and tell you about that. This is a 2-line phone, which is mildly interesting. Do we have 2 lines? Yeah, we have 2 lines. I guess, it's a little fancier hotel, but I mean, it uses 1 line on the hotel room, right? I'm not sure delivering 2 lines is worth it. I'll also mention most of these hotel phone manufacturers, they have IP options that they basically look the same, but they're SIP. I have not personally seen one yet. I think you'd have to be in a really new hotel that was just built late enough that they decided not to put in analog phone wiring, because obviously the analog's always going to be cheaper. So, what are some interesting things that we can say about this phone? Well, I was looking at the number card, or whatever you want to call this. What's the kind of funky term that people use? Long, awkward pause while I think about this. DESI card, the DESI card or designation card. I thought this was kind of funny. It says international calls 9 plus 011 plus country code plus city code plus a number, which it's just that city code plus number thing. That, like, I guess that describes UK phone numbers, basically, but it's weird to be that specific with an international phone number, right? Because it just depends on that country's numbering scheme. Like, after the country code, we don't know what the number means. It's interesting that you have to dial 9 for an outside line. That's like, I'm not going to say there's no exceptions, but when you have to dial 9 for an outside line, that tends to make me think we have an older phone system, because so many newer systems, they design the dial plan to avoid that, basically by evaluating the number that you dialed after you've dialed the whole thing, so that the phone system has the benefit of knowing how many digits you dialed. There are downsides to doing that, and I'm sure there are diehards who will say it is better to use a 9 prefix so that you can evaluate the phone number from left to right and avoid having an awkward pause while it has to wait to find out if you're going to dial more digits. But most modern phone systems, business phone systems, that's the route they tend to go, is variable length dialing. Let's try out this phone just to determine that it works. I'm going to dial a very secret phone number that you've probably already read. This is a test line that I set up. You feel free to call it. I'm not going to promise you it's reliable because I run it. But here we go. This is the awkward pause while it waits to see if it's going to collect more digits. It's funny because they don't need to here, but I think they still have it configured that way.
You have reached the test line. Calling number +1702-693-7111. Name from CNAM, Bellagio Hotel. ANI2 not reported.
Okay. ANI2 not reported tends to mean that this is just coming across as a totally normal ANI2. That's a whole, I don't know that I'm gonna. ANI2 isn't even the most common term. That's just what I have stuck in my head. There's another acronym for it. It's 2 digits that you get on the ANI info on an incoming call if you can receive ANI that tell you the service class of the calling line, which is mostly useful for determining whether or not the call's coming from a payphone. And obviously this isn't reporting that information. Notice that our CID number is it's the same one that's on the face card of the phone. So no surprises there. Calling that is going to get you an auto attendant where you can dial a room number. This hotel uses 5-digit extensions. Not surprising because it is a big hotel. But still, it's always interesting to see a 5-digit extension system. So you'll notice floors 4 through 9, it says to dial 4 plus the room number. Because floors 4 through 9, those are only going to be 4-digit phone numbers. So they have to stick something on to conform them to their 5-digit routine. I have noticed that all of the hotel like service lines, so like the concierge, for example, are extensions starting in 77. So I think that just tells us there is no floor that is 70 some in this hotel, and that's kind of where they've chosen to place those non-room number extensions. That is probably just about all the intrigue I can extract from this phone system. Actually, let's hit the messages button and we might be able to tell what system this phone is running on.
There are no written or voice messages for you. Feature menu. To set a wake-up call,
So I don't personally recognize that voice prompt, but I'm not like that kind of person. I'm not exactly Evan Doorbell, right? There might be people out there who will just hear that voice prompt and be able to tell you what phone platform this is. You will notice when I push the message button, you heard the DTMF of this phone dialing because it's not a digital extension. So this has just memory stored in it of what numbers it should dial when you press the different buttons on the phone. And so there you are. That's all you wanted to know, more than you wanted to know, I am sure, about hotel phones. Okay, as promised, we're going to check out the motorized drapes. This requires getting into a back corner. Here we go. These are, I'm not sure if you're supposed to say that Somfy or Somfy. It seems to be a really common brand for motorized drapes in residential, too. I think this is just a low voltage control cable, but it looks like it's like an 8P modular connector, and then they're just plugged into an outlet back there. There's nothing that interesting about these except that there's this switch. I don't know if you can see, but this switch selects between silent and high speed. I wanted to find out, so I opened and closed the drapes with it on both settings. It like barely makes a difference. It seems like it's basically the same speed and the same noise level either way. Okay, but you know the star of the show, besides the in and out cup, is going to be the TV. So this, I kind of like this hospitality TV system because it tells us, oh man, I turned the volume down before, but clearly it resets. Oh, and I can't even get it. This remote, it's one of these hotel remotes that's like the membrane keypad that's supposed to be easier to clean. I kind of hate these. It says powered by Tangerine Global in the lower left corner, so we know who the vendor is. This isn't, I poked around in here. It's just not that interesting. We've got all the classic, like, hotel services. Notice that this is painfully slow to use. Services. My account does exactly what you expect. It just shows you the room folio, which is empty for me. This is kind of cool. This flight status, I haven't actually seen this on a hotel TV before. So that's I'm a little worried about how this paginates. Like, if I wait, will it change pages? Because I don't, yeah, I think the answer to that is yes. Because, this is a busy airport. It's Harry Reid, so I think there's more than just this. The loading spinner gives me Android vibes, so I'm wondering if, okay, pushing exit didn't work. I'm wondering if this runs Android. Now we exited. There's some just like normal annoying things about this. Like notice when, let's say we go to amenities, when we're in one of these menus, it says down for back at the bottom of the screen, and we can see those buttons down there. Yet when I push down, we get loading spinner for a few seconds. It's just little things that kind of suck. I always like looking in these menus just to see the like copywriting, because I don't think anyone uses these. This was my personal favorite. I actually don't. Oh no, this thing is not pleasant to use at all. Somewhere in here there is like, oh, entertainment, gaming, baccarat. Step into the opulent realm of our luxury baccarat area, where timeless sophistication converges with modern allure. The ambiance, adorned in rich hues of gold and burgundy, is a testament to refined taste. Our intimate baccarat salons are a destination within a destination. So, who do you think they collect metrics on how many people ever look at these? Like, imagine the user persona of someone who is staying in this hotel room and goes through the TV menus to read these little copywriting blurbs about the table games. It feels, I think I say this every time I talk about hotel TVs, but this feels like the most intense, like this was just done to put a feature on a list to sell this to the hotel chain. No one, not the people who implemented this for sure, ever really worried about the possibility that someone would genuinely want to get information about the casino this way. Because if they cared, they would realize that this is, no one's going to use this. It is so slow. And there's a lot of just like cop outs, like, there's somewhere in here, I don't even know that I can find it, where it promises a map of the hotel, but then if you select it, it just tells you to go to the website to look at the map. Like they didn't even bother with trying to put the image on the TV. I'll show you in a little bit of messing around with this TV the funniest thing that I found, which is that if we go to the main menu, I'm just going to go back. Oh, I'll show you something that's a little bit funny about this TV. It's got channels that are like mapped to functionality. So if we go up a little bit past iCrime, let's keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Here we are. So number one, we have the flight status channel, which when I first saw this, I was like, oh, so they've got like a video feed, right? Which would make more sense to me, especially in like an older system. No, you got to press OK. This is a channel that's just like a shortcut to where you can get from the menu. The one that's weird to me, though, is channel 20, checkout. I love that there's a checkout channel, which is conspicuous because I poked around a little bit and I could not figure out how to get to this from the menus. There's a lot of pieces of this television system that are just really like, it's poor information design. Like no one planned out the menu hierarchy here. It just seems accidental where different things land. And the fact that checking out of your room from the TV, which is a common feature in hospitality TV systems, is a channel that is a shortcut to the menu, but it's not in the menu, is just classic, like no one ever thought this out. The funniest thing to me is that if I push the menu button, and then I go to movies for our pay-per-view content, which was classically quite a revenue stream for hotels. I doubt that's as true anymore in the age of streaming services. It says 404 page not found. But if we look under this menu overlay, it periodically says press movies. Indeed, there is a movies button on the remote. And if I push that, it works. There's just like a dumb bug. Like no one even checked if the menus on this TV work right. Oh, one more neat detail. Channel 9997, recorded TV. DVR. Oh, the DVR is disabled. I love that this like DVR feature is turned off and yet the channel is still here.